everyone, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kaley Gray, and I'm super excited today to have my friend Becca with me. And she is in Indiana, right?
Yep.
What's so crazy is we've pretty much known each other our whole lives. Um, I'm trying to think of we were probably in diapers and maybe potty trained. I don't know, but our mom
Yeah.
friends, we were in Iowa, and then you guys moved to Indiana.
Yeah.
And we haven't been the closest over the years, but it's been fun. This last year we've really reconnected. She has a podcast called Live Free Love Well, and she just finished season 1 of it, and it's so amazing. So I'm going to put all of those links below so that you guys can listen to it. And season 2 is August 18th, right?
Yep. August 18th.
Yay. And so make sure that you guys subscribe to that, and I'll put all the links below. And be sure, if you have not subscribed to this channel yet, please subscribe and hit that red button below and follow me on my social media. And I'll have Becca's social media too. And so Becca, the reason that I had you on the podcast was because something that you had said in your Good Grief podcast that you had done that week, I just realized there's so many people that are grieving right now. And I know you and your family, that you guys went through a loss. And just something that you had said was that you can have grief and joy together. And so I just thought that was so powerful. And so if you don't mind kind of sharing a little bit about your story with grief and loss.
Okay. Yeah. So it's been a little over 5 years ago now that we lost my brother, and he was a year older than me. At the time, he was 26 when he got in his accident, and he got in a motorcycle accident on his way to my other brother's wedding. And so they still went ahead with the wedding, which is a whole nother, podcast or vlog within itself. But so we were dealing with his grief for a really long time. And like a year, almost to the day, a year after his accident, my grandpa, who my brother that passed away, he was super close to, they were really tight. He found out that he had pancreatic cancer. So he got a pancreatic cancer diagnosis almost a year later. And so within 2 years, my family learned how to deal, or was forced to learn how to deal with an unexpected loss that you were not expecting, and then one that you had several months to deal with. And looking back, I can't say that one was easier than the other.
Yeah.
I think the grief process in both were very similar. And I think it looks a little bit different for each person involved. So like my mom, it was her son and then her dad. And even now I look back at it and I'm like, what I went through was hard, but looking at what she went through and her son and her dad, like I would never wish any of that on anyone. And her and I, we've kind of dealt with the grief and the loss similarly. As far as how we deal with it. And both of us in both situations really just from the beginning gave it to God and said, at this point, there's nothing we can do about it. And so it's been 5 years now since we lost my brother, and about 4 since we lost my grandpa. And when I went to that live, I talk about it on the podcast. But I went to a live podcast of Annie F. Downs, her That Sounds Fun show. And one of the girls on there asked about how do we have fun and grieving. And when she said that, I was like, oh my gosh. And the way she talked about it, it was like it just put words to things that I have felt anyway. Because I think it's such a touchy subject, and I've seen how grieving affected my parents and how it affected me, and even my 2 other siblings, and them and myself included. Each of us grieved it differently. I don't think any of us grieved it the same. And even so, to this day, 5 years later, it's all a little bit different too. And so when she had said that, I think that's one thing that has really stuck with me. And I felt like almost like I wish I would have had somebody talk about it sooner to me, because I think in grieving, you get so caught up in feeling like you have to be sad that you don't let yourself be joyful and have fun. And I remember in both times, when it was my grandpa's, funeral services or my brother's, and around those times that we had those losses, dealing with it in my head, like, I'm laughing about this. Is that okay? Like, what are people going to think? Am I allowed to be happy? And I think a lot of people feel that way, that you ask yourself, am I allowed to be happy even though I just lost something or someone? And so that's, I think that when I went and heard her talk about that, it was just like, it just clicked with me. And that there's so much good that we sometimes miss out on because we're so busy being sad. And I know that that's something that I've had to really learn to grow in. And I know my mom and I have grown in that together. And I know that she's still kind of working through a lot of that. But it's just a huge part, I think, of the grieving process, is letting ourselves have fun and laugh. Because you can cry and be happy at the same time. And I don't think we always think about that.
Yeah, no, that's so good. It's so powerful, because I mean, I didn't lose, a brother, but I lost both of my grandpas within 9 months. And then it's about a year and a half, I lost my grandmother. And just even in their losses, like, grief is so real. Like, there's just random times that you just start crying and you don't know why. But something like my dad had always said, because I had thought, well, maybe I need to move home. Maybe I need to be closer to family. Maybe, put my life on hold to be able to help these other people with their grieving process. And my dad, something he told me, he's like, Kaley, you only have one life to live, and you need to go live it to the fullest. And that's part of like why I, in my single season, have been living my life to the fullest. And it's not that I can't grieve and feel sad about the person that I lost, but I still have to enjoy my life. Like, that's what they would want me to do. But it was hard, because when I lost my grandparents, I have one living grandmother right now. It was almost like a dream died, because I had always dreamt of having them at my wedding someday. And so it was just kind of like you said, like releasing it to God. And just, I always go to worship music and prayer and stuff like that. There's honestly some songs that I can't even listen to right now without crying, because those are the songs that literally got me through that hard time. And they just have such an impact on me. But the guilt is so real that you feel like you need to be sad. You need to have this like year-long grieving or longer because somebody is lost. But then you miss out on the fun. And I think if you are grieving, I'm not an expert in grief or anything like that, but talking about the stories of them and laughing and sharing, I know that has definitely helped my grief process and my family's. And so I'm so thankful for that. And something else that you had said on the podcast is you can grieve people that have left this earth, but you can also grieve the loss of jobs, of friendships, of relationships. Do you have any more that you want to share on that?
Yeah, I think the more I've thought about it, since we've kind of talked about that part of it too, is like there really is so much you can grieve seasons of life. Like being a mom right now, like Olivia's about to start kindergarten. Like I'm kind of grieving her being a baby. Yeah. And I think there's so much, but like even in that, I need to give myself permission to grieve those things, but at the same time, be sensitive to the fact that I can't grieve her being a baby so much that I missed this beautiful opportunity to watch her grow into a little girl and go into kindergarten. And so I think that, that's just one example of different things that we that we can grieve, like you said, jobs, relationships, so much stuff. Like, I mean, I think about if you were, I left a job that I was at for almost 5 years. Um, it, I was in warehouse work and went to banking. So two totally different things.
Yeah.
But over the time I was at the warehouse, I had really great friendships that I developed. I loved my boss. Some of the peers that I worked with, we grew really great friendships. And you know, I remember when I left, one of the girls I was talking to, I was like, "Oh, we'll be friends," and she was like, "You know, it's not going to be the same. Like, I won't see you 5 days a week for 8 hours. We won't. It's yes, we will still, you know, be friends and you know talk occasionally, but it's not the same." And so I remember hearing a song, and kind of like you were saying with songs to this day, when I hear this song, it's by Danny Goki. I can't think of what it's called. If I think of it, I'll come back to it. But whenever I hear it, I think of leaving that. And it came on the radio out of nowhere on my way to work, that my first day at the bank. And I cried, like bawled the entire way to work. It was a 30-minute drive. And I just like, because I was grieving my old job and talking about like, you know, things that you've lost and telling your heart to beat again, to get back up and keep going. And so I remember just feeling like in that moment, like grieving my job so much, but being excited for something new. And so I think the whole grieving thing, I think it can apply to so much stuff. And I would have hated to grieve the job I was leaving so much that I missed out on all the stuff I could learn and all the friendships I could make at the new place.
Wow.
And don't get me wrong, like there's 100% a time to grieve. And sometimes it's just grieving, like you were saying with telling stories about people and stuff. And I mean, honestly, it probably took 2 years before our family could have normal conversations about Seth. And even now, there's some of them that are still really hard. But 2 years that we went where we couldn't even speak his name without somebody feeling something sad. And that's okay. Like that is totally okay. It's okay to let yourself cry. And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves that permission enough, but we need that crying to push through to get to the joy sometimes. Yeah. And I think like with my mom, sometimes it just really irks me how little people let her be happy after she lost my brother and then my grandpa. And there were a few people specifically that like made her feel bad for not publicly crying in front of people or breaking down. And I'm like, the peace that she has is unexplainable. And it's okay. Like it's not that there weren't times that she sat in her bedroom and cried herself to sleep or grieved the way she needed to grieve. Everybody grieves so different. And I think we just, whether it's a like physical death in our family or friendship, or a divorce, or leaving a job, or kids going off to school for the first time, like it's okay to let ourselves cry. But I think there's a fine line there where we can allow ourselves to go from the grief to the joy. And sometimes we don't want to get there, but I think that's such a beautiful place to be, to let yourself enjoy what you have and still be grieving what you've lost at the same time. They don't have to be separate. They can go together.
Oh, man, that's so powerful. I love this. Thank you so much, Becca, for just being on.
You're welcome.
Sharing this, because this is something personally, like I've never heard being able to grieve and have joy at the same time. So I really hope that everyone is encouraged by this vlog, and you know, be sure to check out Becca's podcast. She has just done an amazing job stepping out and doing what God has called her to do. So
Thank you.
So excited for what God has in store for you in this next season, and just thank you for sharing your heart, because I know it's not easy, because, you know, I grew up knowing Seth too, and just you sharing his story it's so powerful. So thank you. So
Thanks for having me on.
yes,
It's been fun.
yes, it was so
Something
fun to
new.
meet each other too.
Yeah, I know. We'll have to meet up sometime in person, not Zoom.
Let's meet in Iowa. We can just like meet in Iowa. We'll
Yeah, there we go.
reunion with everybody. Well, I hope you guys have a great Friday, and I will see you next week.